Hi everybody, my name is Stacy and I'm excited to join you today from our studio in upstate New York. The Golden team is here with me. I have a wonderful group that's going to help us out today, and I thought what would be really fun is it's July here in the Northern Hemisphere. It's midsummer. A lot of people are traveling, and we were in meetings a couple of weeks ago just talking about how fun it is to put together these half pans that we have for. So we thought it'd be fun to actually do that with you, unbox these, take a look at them, and do some swatch outs and some color mixing, which is always a blast. So why don't you let us know where you're coming from in the chat. We'd love to see where you're joining us from. And we'll go ahead and get started here in a second. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Stacy. I'm joined with one of our materials specialists in the chat who would be happy to answer all your questions. So if you have any technical questions or any kind of question, feel free to ask us. And if there's an opportunity for me to answer it live or do any mixing, we'll see if we can work that in. So thanks again for joining us. And let's go ahead and go to the overhead camera and take a look at all the absolute candy and jewelry that's sitting here. Look at this. It's so pretty. We have Golden makes 4 half pans in our QoR watercolor line. And a half pan is the way that we've got these set up is it's a little tin like this. And when you open it up, this one's actually the intensity set, and we're going to go through each one of these. When you open it up, you have a little card, and that little card is there so that you can actually track your colors and do little paint outs so you know what you're seeing in the palette here. This is what the inside of the half pan set looks like, and you have empty pans on this side. So each one of these half pan 6 color palettes is giving you the opportunity to build your own personality into these different sets. So you get to choose what colors you want to go in here to build on what is already designed by us. So these come out. We will actually fill one of them in one of the sets here in a moment. I'll show you how to do that, and just take them on a tour, see what they do. So it should be fun. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Like I said, I'm going to start with the intensity group. So we have 4, so we will go through all of them. Let me put these over here. Terrific. Okay, so in this set, the intensity palette, it's actually designed to be a mixing palette. So you have a very balanced group of colors here that you can mix just about anything you need with. But they are intense, and that was the purpose behind this, is to really give you that punchy palette where you can really get a lot of range and brightness. Todd, can you go ahead and throw up the palette for us? Awesome. So I just want to run you through this very quickly. This comes with a Hansa yellow light. And if you look at the actual technical information on the bottom there, you can see that that is a semi-transparent color. You have your light fastness rating and your staining or granulating information. So this is a semi-staining color, transparent Perol orange. It's a very bright but has this beautiful glow and undertone. It is also a staining color. And transparent, quinacridone magenta is transparent staining. Dioxazine purple is incredibly powerful purple color. And you can see that that one is a semi-transparent and staining. And then to add some texture, we have this beautiful cerulean blue chromium. So you do have a granulating color within this palette. And then the phthalo turquoise, another transparent. So as you get those that granulation mixed in with some of these transparencies, you can get some really beautiful texture. So if you go ahead to the overhead again. So just a quick tour. This is what the color wheel kind of breaks down with this palette to look like, and the center here will show you that you really can get to a black. So really, when you're painting, depending on how much of one color or another, you can get very close to a black with this palette. It's really lovely. Here you can see some wet into wet painting, showing that brightness of the palette, but also some of the beautiful subtleties once that's really let down with a lot of water. So we're going to do some mixing to show you this palette in action, and I have a couple of photos here. This is from Katie, and this one's from Colleen. These are folks that work here at Golden. And what we're going to do is we're going to match some of the color that you see in the water and the boats. And then we're also going to take a look at mixing a color to match this flower. In addition to that, I'm going to be panning some Titan Buff into this palette because I felt like it might be nice to be able to work back in some of these sort of almost creamsicle highlights into the flower. So I will show you what that looks like when I mix, but also how to add that to my palette. Okay. All right, I'm excited. I don't know if you're excited, but let's get started. All right, so I'm going to open up my set. QoR is made with a unique binder. It's Aquasol, and Aquasol has been used in the conservation community for in-painting when they're repairing historic works. And part of the reason that was preferred is because it is something that re-wets really, really well, and it's flexible and clear. So as I start to touch water onto this pan, I'm going to actually, can you zoom in, Todd? Thanks. Just a moment, you'll see that. It really starts to wet out very quickly. I don't know if you've ever had a watercolor set where you've had to really scrub and scrub and scrub that color to get it to move, but it looks like we'll come back to that later. It's all good, it's all good. So that really re-wets nicely and very quickly, so you're not stuck there scrubbing. But what I'm going to do to make this color with this palette is it's actually just a combination of that Purell orange, Purell orange transparent, sorry, tongue-tied there, and the quinacridone magenta. It's a pretty simple mix, and we'll actually, once we do this mixture and we get close to that flower and you see it wet and how the paint moves, we'll go ahead and pan the Titan Buff, and then I'll come back and do those little highlights. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm just going to show you how powerful this is. This is that transparent Purell orange. You know, just kind of putting that color out, it's already really intense, which is wonderful. This is the intensity set, right? But I can let this down really quite a bit and get those subtle blushy, warm tones that we see in the flower. Okay, and I can also pop in this quinacridone magenta, sorry, tongue-tied again. You can see how bright and intense that color is. It's really gorgeous. So I will want to take that down a little bit with some water and start washing that in. And then you can start to see this is where I'm going with that. Really beautiful. And I'm really getting close to my flower here. Now, I do see that this is a little neutralized. Okay? As this dries, this color will look very close to the petal here. But in my shadow areas where I have a little neutralized color, I can just maybe pick up a little bit of the cerulean and just kind of just put a touch of that cerulean blue in here. And you'll see it starts to turn gray. Here, I'll flip this around. It's like a violet. If you have a lot of the quinacridone, it's going to be violet. But if you move towards that orange a little bit, you start to get a little bit of a neutralizing effect. So I could work on these areas with this palette as well. So even though it's a very bright palette, you do have the ability to tone these down with mixing. Okay, so I'm going to move that aside. And now I'm going to fill the pan because I really want to get to these sort of silvery, you know, sherbety colors in here. And I decided that that's what's missing in my palette. So I'm going to go ahead and add that. These little pans come out, which makes it really easy for you to fill them. And then also, if you have more than one of these sets, you can switch your colors around, which is really helpful. So I am going to take a paper clip and just unfold it. I have one already done over here. And just, you know, a straight wire or something like that. Even a toothpick could work. This will help me when I'm panning this to sort of work out any air bubbles that I have. So let's go ahead and zoom in tight, Todd, if we can. All right, great. So I'm going to take this little guy, and I'm going to go ahead and start with my tubed paint, and I'm going to squeeze that into the pan, kind of working from corner to corner. We have an article on this. Actually, for this event, in the chat, you'll see there's a landing page that has some information and articles, and so there's actually an article that our material specialist that's in the chat right now, I believe she wrote it, on how to pan one of these. So you have that resource if you forget how I do it now. Or if you'd like to see this technique in writing, you can refer to that later. So I'm just going to use this paper clip to get those air bubbles out. There we go. And if you really want to fuss with this and make it really smooth and pretty, you can keep tapping it. Oh, there's a big, I don't know if you see that. There's a, oh, you don't. Let me flip this around. There's a big air pocket right in this side, so I'm going to work that out. There we go. All right, great. So then I can just put that back in here. I can let this dry, actually. Takes a few days to a week, depending on your environment. I can let it set up outside the palette if I want, or I can just go ahead and put it in there. Now it's tube paint. I can use it now, but I'll be adding water to it, so obviously that'll make it dry slower. But for the sake of this demo, I'm just going to go for it. So I have this color we mixed, and now I'm just going to take a little touch of this just to give you the idea, this, you know, what this Titan buff will bring. I'll take a little bit more. And of course, I just made a mess of my pan, but I can clean that out later. There we go. So I'm just adding this in just so you can visualize what this would do. And so I'm able to work in this sort of warm, you know, semi-opaque color back in to get some of these that you might see in the petal of the flower, those little kind of sherbety, if that's even a word, highlights. Okay, so that's the intensity palette. I'm going to do one more mix from this palette, but we have 4 and they're all so different, so I'm excited to go through them with you. So that's this one. Let's do one more with this palette, and it's a pretty simple mixture. Look how gorgeous this is. So this is Katie's photo from it's just gorgeous, all that blue. And when I saw this palette, I thought, oh my gosh, it's like right there. We can totally nail this. So this is our swatch out. This is intense. That orange we just mixed, I could see some of that in here. Probably some of the more neutralized color in here. But I'm going more for these blues and violets. So I'll just show you that in action so you can have that ooh ah moment. Okay. So here we go. I'm going to take and wet these out. These are dry right now. So, oh, no, they're not. I guess that's not. Let's see, violet. There, the violet's dry. So you'll see how quickly it wets out. Get the water on the blue. That's the turquoise. And this is why the little card is helpful, because when they're dry, they're very dark. So I can see, this is really small, you can't see it on the camera, but these have letters next to them, which is also on your card. So then here's my violet. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to start with this cerulean blue. And you can see that already that color's in my image. So for a lot of it, this could be sort of my general color for most of this area. But then when I get into some shadows or some areas that have a little bit of a green bias, a little bit more of a green bias, I can work in some of this turquoise and violet. So here's the dioxazine violet. Look how dark that is. So you really have to, these are very powerful colors. You have to sort of let them down easy. So there you can start to see this mixing. I really give it a little bit more water. There we go. Right? Now I can come back in with that chromium because it's not as much of a bully, to quote my colleague, as the diox. And then we can get those guys mixing, and I can start to see some of those colors maybe in the sort of shadows of the boat down here. I could even, like I said before, work in a little bit of this phthalo turquoise, but again, super powerful. So the tip here is with this intensity palette, you know you're dealing with intense color, is that you can be intense, but then when you want to be subtle, just really lean into that water and try to work those colors together gradually. So I'm starting to see if I darkened it and I kept working, I could get into this color down here. All right, so when that dries up, it'll look a lot like that. This is the phthalo in here, this is the purple in here, and then you have your cerulean here. All right. So that's the intensity palette. So really you can add whatever color you want on this side to balance this. It becomes your studio on the go. It's your thing. So if you're traveling, this is going to give you a lot of range by itself, and then if you add, it just extends it. So that's our first mixing palette. We have a second mixing palette that I'm going to show you. And then the other two are actually kind of special effects palettes, which is also exciting and fun. So let's go ahead and switch this over. The next one is going to be our urban sketch palette. So don't let that fool you. It doesn't have to just be for urban environments, but it was designed with urban sketch painters in mind, because there are certain, certain colors that you'll want to achieve if you're painting in the urban environment. You know, a lot of neutrals, grays, rust. This will get you there. But this also is a full mixing palette. So you have the capability of really painting anything. So I have a couple of images here. Here's our color wheel. I got a little too blue in here when it dried, but you can really neutralize anything from these. You can almost see the rusty color in here. But really you can get anywhere from like a dark, dark gray to these sort of browns as you combine these colors to create neutrals. I have a couple of images that we're going to look at with this palette. One is Allison's photo from Venice, and the other is Todd's beautiful photograph from, I guess it's the Grand Canyon? Antelope Canyon. That's so beautiful. All right, so here's the little color chart. You saw that. This is some wet and wet painting. You can see it's still a very vibrant palette. The difference is, these are different pigments, obviously, and we'll show you that in just a moment. But, we have a brown and a gray, and it's just a little less intense than the last one. So if you go ahead and show the palette. Thank you. There we go. So this one has benzimidazolone yellow, so you can see that is a semi-transparent, semi-stainer, quinacridone red, a beautiful, rosy red. Staining color, transparent. You've got three granulators, in this set. You've got your cobalt blue, you've got your cobalt teal, and your Van Dyke brown. All that texture is really great when painting landscape or urban environments. And then you've got Payne's gray. Payne's gray is a workhorse, a beautiful, cool, neutral color. So if you want to go ahead and go back to the overhead. What we're going to do for this one is we're going to do a simple mix just to show the sort of color of the water and the highlights using these two cobalts. And also this building is, a really interesting color and not an obvious one to mix. So we got close. I would probably tweak it a little bit. It's something that's pretty close to this mixture here. So I'll show you what I did. And you can see how we can go from like really chromatic to something very subtle with this palette. And then I'll show you this beautiful orange. Okay. I hope you're having fun. I am. Okay. So let's go ahead and wet these out and see these swatches. So first, as promised, we'll do the more simple mix of the two blues, the two cobalts, and just take a look at how they behave. I think that's a nice thing for you to see, how the paint moves, how the little the granulation pops. There we go. So this is your cobalt blue. Beautiful granulating color. I'm going to put it on rather saturated here on one end, so you can just see, similar to what I did here. This is a color fully saturated. And then I'm going to wash it into the teal. And then when I do that, you'll really see that movement of the granulation. Okay. Teal's a funny color. It can make some beautiful neutrals. They both can. And we'll see that on the next swatch out. Something that may be a little unexpected. There you go. So you start to see that paint move. You can see that texture rise. And it just feels like aqua, where I'd like to be in July. Now in the picture, this is feeling a little bit more like the sky than it is the water. I would probably, in painting this, bring in some of that Payne's gray and come back in with that cobalt. But you know, you see that it's here. Those colors are here. All right, now this one. This one I was like, oh, that building, it's not the easiest thing to get. So let's have a little fun trying to get there. Basically what I used here is the benzimidazzolone yellow, the teal, and a little bit of the Van Dyke brown. Just brown by itself with the yellow just wasn't neutralized enough, because this feels like it's got a little dirt on it, like it's a little gray, it's old. I'm sure it's been there a while. So let's see that really quickly here. Just get it going. All right, I'm going to start with the yellow. You can see that benzimidazzolone yellow. I just, you know, I didn't work on that too long. I just wiggle, wiggle, and here I am, and it's kapow, lots of color. It's very strong. So I'm going to let this down with some clean water and try to get the right value. And now I'm going to come in with just a touch of the brown. Again, I don't want to go too, I don't want to be too aggressive. I can mix these in my palette, but I'm mixing them on the watercolor paper so you can actually see the paint move. Now that's too warm, right? It's not dirty enough. I need to get it a little dirty, a little grayer. So that's what the green's going to do. I'm just going to take a little bit of this cobalt teal, and I have to just ease into it and bring that in. And you see it start to gray a little bit. Okay, it starts to neutralize. Right, so when that dries, that might even be a little bit more on the yellow side, so I could go in and just warm it up just a tad with some more of that Van Dyke brown. But as that starts to dry, it's going to be maybe a little on the greener side, but pretty close to this. I could warm it up just a tad more. So the reason I'm showing you this is that we have a beautiful chromatic palette here you can do a lot with. It really does give you range in your mixing. But you might say, yeah, this is great, I love this palette, but it's missing my favorite color, or you know, I want to add something more granulators or some opaque colors. You can do that. You can just add them right in here and expand that and really make it your own. Okay, good. We're halfway there. I have one more on this set and then two more to show you, and they're really neat. The other two are completely different. So here we go. Here's the second one we're going to show you with this Urban Sketch set. Again, Urban Sketch. Mixing the color of the canyon is a lot like mixing the color of rust or the stucco in a Venetian building. So we will jump right into that. Here we go. This looks like a lot of colors, right? So it's 4 colors to get this mixture, but it's actually mostly these two with a little bit of these. And the logic here is that, you know, there's areas that are cooler, that are a bit more neutralized, and areas that are warmer, that none of them, though, are just like screaming orange. So I'll show you some mixtures here that will speak to that. Okay, just need to grab some paper. If we look at that Venetian photo as well, you know, this is in a different time of day, different light. You can see that these colors would be in these buildings as well. Right, so that's what I meant by this. It's in all the places. This is a very utility, has a lot of utility, these mixtures. So, okay, so we'll just do one. You can see the difference here between adding the teal and adding the cobalt blue. So we have the cobalt teal and the cobalt blue. Cobalt blue is going to go a little bit cooler, a little bit more neutral. The green is going to keep some of the warmth. So I think I'll do this one. All right. So I'm going to start actually with the red. Just wash a little bit of that quinacridone red. It's very rosy and cool, and you can see that I'm way off at this point. That's not it. So I'm going to now add some yellow to really warm this up. Oh boy, there we go. So as that warms up, okay, I'm getting closer. Not there yet. Still way too chromatic. It's like bright orange. And I would like something that is warmer and a little less intense. So I'm going to pick up some of this brown, my Van Dyke brown. I'm going to put it off to the side since I'm mixing in wet into wet. There we go. Warm this up a little bit. Ooh, I'm getting closer. There we go. You can see there's variation, and I'm doing that intentionally. And then I do want to add in a little bit of this cobalt, just to show you how it neutralizes. And I might go back and put a little red in again. It gets almost gray in this area, which I actually see right in here. So I'm not too far off. If I had a little less water, and my color is getting there. Okay. So I could do this all on my palette. Let's do that very quickly. I have one here already mixed. So I have yellow, red, touch of brown. Nice thing about this palette is you know, when this dries here, your color's there for you. You can come back to it. And then I have a touch of, oops, wrong one. I'm using cobalt blue. Cobalt blue. There we go. Way too violet, too gray, so it's not a big deal. Just pick up some more yellow. Okay, now we're green, not a big deal. Had a little too much water on my brush. Go back to red. There we go, we're warming up now. Oops. Okay. Okay, so here's my canyon color. I'll just show you a little rosy, a little bit warmer. There we go. So you can mix the colors right on your palette and they'll stay. This is a silicone palette and wipes off, cleans off. It's great. Okay, so are there any questions in the chat while I'm packing up and moving things around?
Not a question, but Alexandra, who is watching from YouTube, said that she's had a really nice tip that we shared on Facebook as well for the audience there. And she said when she's working with intense colors like these, she likes to keep a second brush available to add water, so she doesn't have to use all the pigment out of the first brush to dilute the intensity.
That's great. That's great. That's right. And sometimes I even keep a dry brush to pick up water, or a little paper towel, or So thank you for the reminder. Yes, so we had feedback that from an artist on YouTube that they keep extra brushes around so that when they're bringing in water and working with the paint, that it's not rinsing constantly. And I think that's a great tip. And yeah, wonderful. Thank you. All right, granulators. Excellent. So this is a totally different set. So we're shifting gears now. We talked about 2 mixing sets. Now we're going to talk about 2 of the 6 color half pans that are actually more of like an effects set. I would, say that the granulators are really not a palette in themselves, but it's bringing texture to a palette that you actually add to this. So what I did is I went ahead and just did some wet into wet so you could see what this palette looks like. It's primarily a cool palette. So if our green here is rather warm, and but it's a really lovely, soft palette with these beautiful textures. And so for this one, I have Allison's photo from, I think it's the Cape. And we're going to actually add some color to this palette to get all of these warm tones, because as you can see, it's very cool. And I really liked that there's so much texture in this photo with the beach and the sea that I thought this would be a fun one to do a match. So if you want to go ahead to the overhead, yeah, great. So I have it down here on my, as my cheat sheet as well. But this has a ultramarine pink dark. As you can see, they're all granulators. Ultramarine violet, ultramarine blue, cerulean blue chromium, cobalt teal, and cobalt green. Beautiful palette. So let me just show you what we did here. Thanks. So for this one, since I wanted to add, like I said, these are yours. So if it's like your little studio on the go, I want to use a lot of texture, but I wanted to add some warmth. So I decided to add 2 transparent warm colors that I thought would, work well with these granulators. So I have India yellow, and it's a semi-transparent. And then I have a transparent quinacridone red that I added. And then, of course, all of these beautiful colors we just looked at. And I'm not going to do a whole lot of color mixing on this one, but I just want to show you what I did, and then we'll mix one color. So this is using the cerulean blue washed down, and then I have the quinacridone red and the India yellow, and then I'm starting to blend up, and then I snuck in a little bit of the ultramarine pink dark and a little bit of the cobalt green in here. And you can see that although this is just a swatch out, so it's, sorry, you probably had that perfect there, Todd. It's not exact, but we're pretty close, right, to that sky. So that was fun. And then taking a look at the sand and the stones that are here, I thought, oh my goodness, okay, these are some interesting muted colors, and mine's a little light, to be honest, but when I look into some of these areas here where I'm mixing, if I were to mix this on my palette, right in this sort of section, I'm getting really close to the highlighted areas on the sand. So I know, and that texture, which is really nice, kind of reinforces that feeling of sand. So it's, it's not just the color, it's also the texture that I'm seeing that's starting to come through. Also, you take 2 chromatic colors like this cobalt green and this ultramarine violet, and you can get beautiful steely grays. And this is the one I'm actually going to mix. And this is, I would work this, maybe as a base color, and then work my values and my rendering around that. But this really feels like the stones that are in this part of the photograph over here, the lighter color that's in the stones. And again, that texture kind of reinforces the fact that these are rocks. It has this really great sense of touch. So let's take a look at that, and hopefully you'll get to see some beautiful granulating action as we do this. That's the fun part. I'm going to go ahead and wet this out. Let me move this over here so you can see it. And what you don't see off screen is that I have a bunch of brushes, which is a great tip. So I'm just going to start with the green on one side. And I will really load this up so maybe we can see some changes in value as I mix. There we go. And even though this is really dark right now, I'm starting to see some of that granulation already. Once I pull this into a wash, you'll see more of that start to come through there as it moves around. Yeah, look at that pretty texture. Oh my goodness. You can't have a bad day when you're painting with watercolor. Okay, so now the ultramarine violet. And you can see this is not a bully color. This is a color that's gentle. And we want that. We want to be able to control this gray. There we go. So you can see that. I'm going to actually pull a little bit on this side where I have, so you can see a darker mix over here. There we go. And now I'm going to wash that violet into that gray. Into the green to get the gray. Those subtle grays. There we go. All right. The camera reads it slightly bluer, so I'm just going to, there we go. You really see that it's gray in here. So when this dries, it's going to be similar to this. All right. So that's the granulating set. So that's right here, granulators. And so knowing that that's mostly texture, mostly cool, I can do what I need to on this side to create the palette that I want for my practice. And in this case, it was adding those two, the quinacridone red and the India yellow to get the sunset and the beach. All right, fun. Thank you for that photo, Allison. All right, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to leave this empty. You've got so many beautiful things here to look at. Let's pull them in here. This is the last one. Oh. And it's very sparkly. This one's our reflective set. So what do I do? We get sometimes this question, like we love all of the sparkles, but how do they work? So what I thought I would do is show you some examples of how they might work. They can be used a number of ways. And for this example, I'm going to be using this butterfly. That is an image provided by my colleague Colleen. It's got a little shimmer. I don't know if you can see that on camera. Let's take a look at what's in this palette. Wonderful. So this one has iridescent gold fine, which these are all mica-based colors, so they have that natural granulating effect. So you see a lot of texture with these. So this is one aspect of the paint that you might want to consider if you love texture. It's not just about the bling, it's also about the texture. So you have iridescent gold, iridescent pearl fine, which is white, a kind of a whitish base. And then the silver. On black paper, they look very similar, but on white paper, they do not. Iridescent silver. Interference colors are interesting. Interference colors will behave based on their environment. So we'll show you some of that. So with interference colors, if you were to paint them out on your own, they don't look like much, but boy, when they had color additions, they're amazing. So we'll get into all of that. That's what's in this palette, and let's have a look. All right, so here's my little card. Remember I said interference colors don't look like much? These are all interference colors painted out on white. And if we can get up tight, so when I move this around, you'll see a very slight shimmer on that bottom row. And really, with these lights here, on the camera, you don't see much. But they are amazing. So I'm looking forward to showing you how those really work. So if you go back to the overhead, Todd, this bottom half, I actually added another group of colors to my palette, a full palette now. So what I did is here's my sparkly, beautiful, reflective colors that come with the kit. And then I went ahead and panned the Ali Kavanaugh set, which was designed for portraiture, but it's a full mixing set. So I have a full range of color here and a lot of transparents that I think would look really, really great with these reflective colors. And I'll show you how that works here in just a moment. We'll do some mixtures. This is what's in the set. On black paper, if this were on white paper, you wouldn't see much. These colors right here, this blue, this violet, and this green are those interference colors. They're very, very subtle on white, but when you mix them with a color or you utilize them on black, they pop. This is an example of Payne's gray and the interference green. trying to find my chart, yes. So when, if you can go to the close-up, let's see if we can see this. So when I tilt this, nope, oh, a little bit. Sadly, you're not going to see this great. Let's see if we can see it here. Yeah, well, you can barely see it on the camera, but this is another neat thing about this, is that if I'm going to use this paint subtly in washes over light fields of color, I may not see it on a camera, but when I walk into the room and I look at the work, as I walk past the work, the color shifts and moves. So an interference green from one angle might look like it's very warm, almost like it's leaning towards a reddish or an orangish color. And then as I move through the space, I'll see that green rise. If I mix it with that Payne's gray, now I know you can see it if you zoom in. You can actually see it above. Then that green pops and it becomes very shimmery. So you have this really odd and interesting range of effects that you can get from very, very subtle and only seen with the eye to something that is almost animated as you move around in a dark field that pops. So there's a lot of variability and a lot of potential with those, but you have to really, experiment. Allie Kavanaugh, matter of fact, who designed this set, has used these interference colors as glazes in the skin, just very, very light glazes. So it's almost like a little treat when you see it in person that you don't get on the camera. So they're really special, and those that love them, love them. Okay, so let's do a few things here. I want to show you some mixtures. I didn't do a color wheel because it just doesn't work the same way, but I did some paint outs. So these are the iridescent colors. They show up on white or on black. And I put them on black just to really make this pop, to sort of drive the point home. But you can see them here. This is the gold. White on white is always hard to see. And then this is the silver. So here you have on black paper, which this is black watercolor, by the way. So it's completely, this is designed for this application. This is gold, this is the pearl, and this is the silver. And then this is the interference violet, blue, and green on black. So really an interesting set of options here. Now we're going to mix this color. This is my butterfly color. And I'm going to mix it on both white and black to show you how different they look. It's the same colors and about the same ratio. This is the gold with, in this palette, we have the Purell Orange. Let me make sure I'm telling you the truth. Yes, it's the Purell Orange right here. And that's a really intense, very intense transparent orange. As I'm moving this, and I flip it, you can see that gold in the orange. So, one angle it looks very orange, another angle it looks very gold, and I can see how someone might have some fun with that in an application like this. This is the exact same mixture on black. It reads really differently. If I were to paint this butterfly on black, this would be an incredible effect. Also the green, I just went ahead and made this mixture. I'll show you because I was looking at some of the sort of cool and warm green tones in the grass. This is a new color that we are releasing that's also an Allie Kavanaugh set. It's the ultramarine turquoise, sap green, and actually this is the pearl, the iridescent pearl. And that mixture creates this beautiful sort of cool, reflective green that I could see almost, highlighting some of these grassy pieces back here. But we're going to do this mixture and then we're going to wrap for today. Thanks everybody for joining us. And if you have questions, go ahead and ask in the chat. I'm happy to answer anything that you have there, or a material specialist who's in the chat right now will answer. And then if you have questions later, if you watch this later, you can reach out anytime to our team at help@goldenpaints.com, and they'll be happy to answer your questions. All right, so we're starting with the gold. Now I will say, I showed you how easily things wet out, and that is still the case, But I will tell you that when you have big mica chunks in your paint, you might want to let the water dwell a little longer before you start digging in. Get some fresh water here. There we go. So I'm loading that up, and I'm going to swatch these at the same time. Now you see, again, this is a color that takes a little bit of, imagine that you're picking up chunks of sand. Well, it's not that chunky, but you want to kind of set it down. As you set that down, I'm setting down all those little pieces of mica, right? Now I can wash it, and then if I want to, I can come back in and build more, setting more of those mica pieces in. So I'm going to do that over here as well. And again, I'm just going to do this quickly and mix on my paper so you can see it. See the difference? I start really putting that mica down on the paper. There we go. Now I'm just going to pick up a little bit of that orange staining, bright Purell color. Just sort of set it right in there. You can start to see that move around. Pick up a little more gold, pick up a little more Purell. There we go. And you can, again, make these mixtures in your pan, you know, and then pick them up and put them wherever you want. These little shiny bits are really lovely. Now this will brighten quite a bit when it dries. So I do advise that you know, if you've not worked with reflective colors like this, that you do some tests and play around. There we go. So that's going to dry like that. Now over here, this has been sitting a moment, so I'm just going to get it going again with a little bit more gold. And just show you what about the same mixture would look like on the white paper, so you can see side by side and see how the paint moves. And then we will wish you a happy summer and a happy July, and call it a wrap. There we go. Now again, that's going to change a little bit as it dries, but I think we're in the zone. And there you go. That's going to be one beautiful sparkly butterfly. Okay. Thanks, everybody. I hope that was fun. I had fun. I made a giant mess. We have all these beautiful color swatches all around us here, and I couldn't think of a more lovely thing to do on a July afternoon. So I wish you well, and if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer that in the chat, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.